Good morning, Anne.
Good morning, James.
And good morning, everybody. So this is our 9th Vibe Sunday podcast episode, Anne.
Well, that's come quick.
I know, hasn't it? Well, there you go. Usually the introduction is the most awkward bit for us. We're never quite sure what to say. When I say we, I mean myself. Other than something along the lines of thank you for tuning in, and we hope that you're having a wonderful Sunday morning and a wonderful weekend or week whenever it is that you are listening to us, and thank you for tuning in. So if you haven't tuned in before, for the next half an hour or so, Anne and I are going to have a conversation without any particular plan or script. We will see where it goes. Does that sound okay to you, Anne?
Fine, thank you, yes.
Brilliant. Okay, so off we go.
I had a friend somebody who comes, I class her as a friend, yes. It's somebody who comes to me for treatments, Amy, who is in debt collecting and sorts out people's finances.
Yes.
And it set me wondering about debt itself, is how quickly does debt occur and when does it start to occur? Does it start to occur when we're children if we're not taught about it?
Specifically with money, do you mean?
With money, yes. And do we need money to understand debt?
Oh, that's interesting.
In my feeling, we do need money, because otherwise...
Are you talking about the physical money, tangible
pounds,
money?
Shillings and pence, and being able to count...
paper and coin.
Yeah, being able to count your pennies as a child.
Yes.
To go into a shop. Now children have cards, even children these days have cards.
Yes.
Even for the school dinners.
They do, yes.
Whereas when I was at school, I had money for school dinners.
Yes.
But used to keep the money and go to the chip shop and get a bun, a roll, or whatever you call them these days.
Yes.
Take the middle out, go to the chip shop and stuff it with chips.
So that
and eat it.
A version of a chip butty.
Yeah. So my money from...
Yes.
So I understand that children would do things like that.
Yeah.
Or even adults would do it if you've actually got cash in your hand.
Well, yes, I think I used to do that as well, to be honest with you. So your dinner money, you'd spend it on sweets on the way home.
Well, I didn't spend it on sweets.
I'm talking about myself.
Chip, yeah.
You preferred the chip balm?
No, not balm, a cob.
A chip
See, everybody
cob?
has them.
I know, is it a
hard
balm?
Cob?
Is it a balm, a bap,
a
bread roll, a tea cake?
It's got to be right, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be right.
So no,
something bread-based with chips.
So you take the middle out,
yes,
and then you stuff it with chips and you put salt and vinegar on, and everybody out there now will be wishing they had one.
I know, everybody's licking their lips this Sunday morning, myself included. Well, to take it, good point, to take it back to what you brought up, I think is very interesting, and the move away from cash, I do think, is having a tangible effect on our relationship to money, because it's so easy to spend money now, literally with a flash of a watch, of a telephone, of a device, of a card.
It's £100 now, isn't it, that you can do?
I think
just
so.
A flash of a card.
I think so, yes, in terms of the tap, the contactless.
Yes.
I do, yes, I think you are right. Debt occurring when we are young, I don't know specifically. My intuition leads me to the relationship we have with life itself is formed when we are young, and that includes everything. Yes. So that would include money. So maybe you're proposing indirectly that teaching, learning, experience of money becomes more a part of human life earlier on, in terms of children being able to buy and spend, go to the shops, have pocket money, tangible money, save the pennies, holiday money, whatever it might be. And also within education, both at home and in school, or whatever form of education that children are a part of, there could be a part of that is introducing the concept of money and the value of money and the responsibility of money, because debt, I think, has a large relationship in correlation with the concept of responsibility. And that would have an impact. How big an impact? It's speculation, but I do think it would have a positive impact. What do you think?
Well, I know it has a positive impact, because I was paid by cash in the little brown envelope. My first week's wages, I went home and put my wages on the table. Didn't open it. You never opened your wages.
Okay.
You went home and you put them on the table. My dad did the same, and my mother picked them up.
Yes.
He didn't handle his money. She took out spends for my dad. He had spends. I don't think men could imagine this in these days.
Yeah.
But she gave my dad spends.
Yes.
And I automatically did the same. And she pushed my first wage packet back to me and said, your first wage packet is your own.
Okay.
To spend. And I went out and spent it all.
Yes.
No concept of money, of course.
Okay.
Then I had to say to my dad, that was on the Friday, on the Monday, I had to say to my dad, Dad, I've got no money for bus fare.
Yes.
Or for my lunches at work. And he said, well, I knew that. You've spent it all. I bought everybody presents. And he said, you've just spent it all on presents for other people. But it doesn't work like that, Anne. That's not how money works. You have to make sure you can keep yourself first.
Yes.
So he said, I said, well, will you lend me the money for my lunches and things? So he said, yes. Gave me the money that I needed. The following week, obviously, I still hadn't got enough. Once I'd paid him back, what I'd borrowed, I still didn't have enough money. So I said, not got enough money still.
So you'd got yourself in debt?
I'd got myself in debt.
To your father?
At 15,
Yes.
I was in debt to my father.
Yes.
So what he said to me was, today, I am going to gift you this money. You don't owe it back to me anymore. I'm gifting it to you. But never, ever borrow money off me again.
Wow. What a life lesson.
It was a life lesson at 15 for me.
Yes.
But I wasn't in debt, whereas I could have stayed in debt for the rest of my life from 15, couldn't I?
So
never being able to pay it back.
Potentially, yes.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially, yes.
But I understood that then.
That's very interesting. So the actual life experience gave you the context to be able to see the difference between debt
Yes.
and not debt, and how easy it is to fall into that.
Very easy, very easy.
And today, I would imagine, in so many ways, so many more ways, it's easier, because the amount of credit and money that's available to people, particularly young people, when they haven't accrued already debt and negative credit score, there's a multitude of cards and loans and payday loans, short-term loans available that are quite accessible, and particularly to younger people, but people of all ages as well, who don't even understand, and I'm not saying I fully understand, about interest rates, APR, all of that, how it accrues.
They don't know what APR is, do they?
No, and that I'm not even sure, to be honest with you. I have a full comprehension of it. I mean, I have a broad comprehension, but not I wouldn't say I'm in any way, shape or form a particular authority or particularly knowledgeable about it, just in layman's terms. But people are getting themselves in situations where they are completely out of their depth, and sometimes they don't even know that they are. So it's compounding,
Yes.
no pun intended in terms of money, but it's compounding the problem here. So we have a lack of wisdom on all sides, from the personal responsibility side of parents and families, of education and children, of how we're raising the children, how we're raising ourselves to be as wise and as responsible as possible with what we have, and making sure that that's applied accordingly, and living life from that perspective. But from the responsibility side of the lenders, whether this be banks or loan companies, and all of these new, I'm not even sure exactly what they would come under, but the loaning companies of money that offer payday loans and short-term loans. In a sense, yes, in a sense.
Yeah.
I was going to say legitimate, but I don't know how legitimate they are. They skirt very, very closely to
Very
being
close.
certainly immoral, maybe at times illegal. I don't know, but the rules and regulations to do with this do need to be checked, I feel. And how easy it is for somebody to draw out money that they don't have and accrue credit that then becomes debt happens so easily. And whether that's on cars, on houses, it could be on anything from clothes to sofas to all manner of different types of credit cards. I mean, it really is possible to end up in debt purchasing anything, to be honest with you. Subscriptions now, annual subscriptions, repeated, anything.
Yes.
It really is. It's a minefield out there. So I have a huge amount of empathy for people, but I do see both sides of the coin, again, no pun intended, that we've got to look at personal responsibility here and people being responsible. But we also have to look at the services and goods and the money that's available. How responsible are these organisations, are these financial institutions, these providers being towards humans, towards people, towards young people, not 17, but 18, 19, 20, 21, offering them money that they don't comprehend in a way that they don't comprehend it without really being responsible about making sure whether that's the right thing to do on both sides. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think sometimes it's both sides, isn't it? Because it's not just a responsibility of paying back, is how a company can take the pleasure out of a purchase that you make.
Yes.
Just by, if you're buying a car, and then you don't realise what the rate is going to be and how long it's going to take you. You're only interested in the car.
Yes.
My youngest daughter, when she got married, always wanted a new fitted kitchen. And she saved up for 10 years for this kitchen.
Okay.
10 years, cash.
Yes.
Putting money away, squirreling money away for this kitchen.
Wow.
And she actually had the cash all in money.
Yes.
And she went to the kitchen company.
Yes.
Ordered the kitchen, bought the kitchen. And you can imagine the pleasure because you've paid for it. And it's been, blood, sweat and tears. Literally doing it. And she handed all the money over to them. And then when the kitchen was due to be fitted, the day before, they rang her up and said, "We haven't got it, can't do it. Somebody else has come in and bought your kitchen." And you can imagine the trauma in that for her, because she'd already ripped her kitchen out with 2 young children.
Yes.
And no kitchen, nothing. So she was really upset. Now, how do we deal with that? So what's happened with her was, she's a mother's daughter. She went out and she got big placards made of her kitchen empty.
Right, okay.
And of the kitchen that she was supposed to have. She had a big placard made of that.
Yes.
And she went to the kitchen company, the shop where she'd bought it.
Yes.
And chained herself to one of the posts in the kitchen, in the warehouse.
Chained herself.
Chained herself.
Wow. Right. She was all in.
All in.
Yes.
So she chained herself to the post and these placards so nobody could move them, and sat. She'd have been in the day before to see what the tread was of people.
Yes.
And where people walked, that's where she chained herself. If you buy with this company, this is what could happen.
Wow.
And her husband hid behind another one.
What does that say? Embarrassed.
Embarrassed.
Yeah.
Very embarrassed. But she said to him, if they go to try and move me, ring the police.
Yes.
So this is actually what happened. Is they came and said, "You can't sit here." She said, "Well, I can't move, so what are you going to do about it?" to them. And in the end, of course, she won, because it was bad publicity. And they said, "We'll have it there by Monday. We'll have your kitchen."
Good for her.
But are we not proactive enough ourselves?
Maybe not.
With all things, not just that instance of debt. So in some cases, debt's not fair, is it?
I think in a lot of cases it's not fair.
Because it's got out of hand, because you can't pay £10, it can become thousands of pounds.
Absolutely. And that's where it's not fair. And that's where it's not understood and it's complicated.
Yes.
And it's catching people out. But people are also, the other side of it is that people are spending money they've not got. In a lot of cases on things that are not necessary. Now that's subjective, and I'm not passing any kind of moral judgment or virtue judgment on anybody. We're all a part of this. And I'm reflecting on my own behaviour, to be honest with you. And there's a lot that I can learn, even from my own words, and certainly from your words, Anne, certainly from your words. But I do think we could all be a lot wiser, and we'd all be better for it. I know that's saying it as it is in terms of, well, yes, go fish, go figure. But like common sense is often said that it is not commonly applied, as in it's not particularly common. I do think wisdom is the same, and we need to get back to basics with money, back to basics with life, which will help all of us, you and I included, absolutely, to feel a simplicity of appreciation for the basics and what's actually fundamentally necessary for the basics of life, and then the pleasures of life become simplified, and we can then refine our experience and simplify our experience, and then choose where we complicate it, where we stretch it, what we purchase in other areas. And that's very idealistic, and I seem to say that every week when we sit down Anne, for our Sunday morning podcast, but this does seem to be an idealistic perspective, and I do think that that's a good place to start, at least in our conversation, because it's spiralling out of control, and it does need to change. And if we're going to wait around for financial organisations and the money lenders, banks and financial institutions to change, I don't think we're going to see that happen. I do think, like what you spoke about with your daughter, if we take the responsibility ourselves to make the stand, to make the change, we will see change. That doesn't literally mean that we should all go and chain ourselves outside of institutions, organisations, shops, although it may do. I'm not advocating that. I'm not against that. I think it was very interesting to hear the story, and I'm inspired by your daughter, to be honest with you, because that's taking action and responsibility. But first and foremost, are we responsible for our own actions? And that's a rhetorical question, but we can explore it. Are we responsible, the great grand we, everybody listening, all of us, myself included, are we responsible for our actions? Now, the answer might be an obvious yes, but we don't behave like that, do we, often? We behave like other people are responsible, and that's partly true, because we can't control literally what somebody else does. And that's an obvious thing to say. But too much of life is lived from a perspective that it's happening to us, and that it wasn't really us, and we didn't really mean that, and we didn't really do that, and we shouldn't really have experienced that. But a large part of that is our own doing. If you understand, again, I'm taking it conceptually here rather than literally, but I do think personal responsibility in all facets, debt included, money included, absolutely, but everything, is so important to bringing about personal change, and then collective change, and then wholesale, global, complete and utter change. I mean, does that make sense? I don't know.
It makes perfect sense.
What do you think, Anne?
It makes perfect sense to me. The thing is, when you talk about a basic need for me, from me first getting married and first getting my first house and having children, because I was only 18 then.
Yes.
A basic need for me has always been a tin of baked beans.
Wow, right, okay. I like baked beans, so I'm happy with that.
Because
yes,
a tin of baked beans, I knew that if I gave my children, because when you have no money, you have no food.
Yes.
But I always knew if I had baked beans on toast gave them all the nutritional value that they needed.
Wow. I've heard this before. Baked beans on toast and a glass of orange juice.
Yes.
Has got
everything
you need in a meal. I've heard that before. Somebody said that before.
And maybe that's why most of us like baked beans on toast or cheese on toast.
Yeah. Comfort food.
Which we've all had.
Simplicity.
So we don't need a lot of money to have our basic needs, do we?
In essence, no.
So basic needs, but there's a difference between needs and wants.
That's a very good point. And the earth will provide for everybody's need.
Yes.
But not everybody's greed.
No.
Which is very true.
It is true.
It's very, very true. It is very true. There are a lot of people out there, I am sure, and we've all experienced it. I'm saying that as read, and maybe you haven't listening this morning, but I'm sure you can relate. And I'm sure everybody, at least in some part, and some very large parts, we all have an experience that we can have a great empathy with each other. We've made decisions to do with money that we wouldn't make again. and that we can learn from. And you highlighted that with your father
Yes.
and him lending you the money for your bus fare and
Yes.
for your lunches that following week. It was your kindness, to be honest with you, your generosity that got you into debt, which is interesting, isn't it? Because
Yes.
even being indulgent in kindness can have repercussions upon yourself.
Absolutely, yes.
So wisdom is a measurement that we use in all directions,
Yes.
even with kindness, even with generosity. So interesting, so interesting. But I wouldn't like anybody to go under and feel the way they feel in this world, and things can get out of hand so quickly. So there are agencies out there that can help, and I'm not in any way, shape or form particularly affiliated to anything, and I am not an expert. No. But in general terms, please have a look at some of the agencies and speak to somebody if you're struggling. And there is advice out there, and there are people out there like our friend Amy, who's brilliant at her job, who can provide sound, solid, knowledgeable, expert advice.
Also empathises.
Absolutely. Who can listen to you and give you advice and point you in the right direction and show you that there is a potential way out. I can't guarantee that. I don't know that. But I do know there are people out there who can help. So if you're listening this morning and this is something that's really touching, something sensitive, there are organisations out there that can help you, that can listen to you, and that can give you sound, solid, expert advice. And I would encourage you, I am encouraging you, if you're in that position, if it feels right for you, to maybe explore that. And I hope it brings something of value to you. Yes. One thing we watched this weekend, linking it to personal responsibility, it was the last episode, and I brought it up last week because it was a brilliant programme. It is a brilliant programme, but it's finished now. Is Ed Stafford Into the Jungle. And if you haven't watched it already, it's finished now on Channel 4. It has been going out on a Tuesday evening, and the final episode went out last week. However, I am sure if you want to get it on Channel 4's streaming programme, their catch-up platform with Channel 4, you'll be able to find it. Ed Stafford Into the Jungle. It's a fabulous programme. A Central American jungle. And Ed Stafford is an international explorer and TV personality, and I think he used to be part of the military, and he spent some time in his youth in the Belize. I think that's how you say it. Central American jungle. And he has taken his personal, literal family over there, and the television programme is centred around him taking British fathers and sons and daughters, so fathers and their children, over to the jungle for an adventure expedition. And it's a television series, documentary, around the relationships, the challenges, tasks that they have to do week by week, the survival, the camaraderie, everything that goes with the stresses and strains, and taking them out of their home environment and their literal home country and taking them in a dangerous environment. And it's so enlightening and so interesting, and I think so fundamentally important about life and about fathers, but parenting in general, and about bringing the best out of children and strengthening the bonds between fathers and children, between parents and children, and the necessary stress that's necessary, doubly said, doubly true, to bring out the best of people. And often the challenges in our relationships need to be tested so that we can resolve them. And again, it's a human-centred programme. And in a world that is becoming ever more technocentric, and we've spoken about money this morning, materialistic, greed, attention, everything that circulates within the supposed progressive modern world in certain facets. This is heartwarming because it's human-centred. It's about the relationships between human beings, between parents and children, and specifically fathers and their children, and how each parent, each father and their child is uniquely different in their dynamic, but there is relatable, obvious overlaps between all the parents. So the shared fatherhood, the shared parenting that unites us all in one capacity or another, and it reminds us of our human family, our human connection, and how fundamentally important it is and how challenging it is. And I find it uplifting, inspiring, interesting, heartwarming, funny, entertaining, educating, everything, motivating. It's a brilliant, brilliant programme. I mean, have you enjoyed watching it as well, Anne?
I've really enjoyed it. It also made me aware of the power of children
Yes.
themselves, is that we don't give them enough power to do things. And to be honest, sometimes they're more sensible than the fathers.
True. Very true. That's very true.
But also, they don't have a filter. So when the father...
Again, very true.
You know, the thing that makes me laugh is that if the father, you know, they say to them, what do you think of your dad? They're very honest.
Yes.
He talks too much or he does something else.
Yes.
And, you know, the fathers are sat there while they're saying it. But there isn't a filter for them. But the respect that grows between both the father and the child and between the fathers
Yes.
is unbelievable. I found that children don't need that. The children themselves are not looking for that respect between each other, but the fathers are looking for it.
Yes.
And in the beginning are trying to outdo each other a little bit.
Yes.
But the children are very, very supportive of each other. And regardless of any problems that because some of the children do have problems in achieving something.
Yes.
They help each other. And it's just wonderful to watch that.
It's really inspiring.
You've got nothing else around you and you're dependent on finding your own food.
Yes.
And your own safety. I mean, some of the things they're doing, I couldn't do them.
And to see the joy on their faces when they are genuinely scared,
Oh,
as
yes.
I would be scared to take on these challenges, and the should I, shouldn't I moment, and then when they choose to do it,
Yes.
the sense of accomplishment, the satisfaction from the courage that they've shown, and then the confirmation from everybody else, and the camaraderie, the strength, the community that grows from that. Oh, it's so, so good. And in a world at this time where children in general are not getting that adventure, they're not getting that challenge, they're spending far too much time indoors, far too much time on games consoles, far too much time on mobile phones, far too much time cosseted, going to this club or that club, being taken in cars. It's in nature, it's outside, it's in an environment that's controlled, but with huge uncontrollables, huge potential risks, but genuine...
Crocodiles.
Absolutely. Snakes, crocodiles, spiders, everything. But it genuinely challenges them in a way that they can overcome it. So it's the challenges are possible. So they're not an impossible challenge.
No.
And it's growth. It's genuine growth for the soul. That the human goodness grows when they are put together and they're given an opportunity to overcome, but it's not easy. And I do think that's fundamentally important for children, for adults, for us all, is that life, if it's too easy, we become too complacent, and that leads to ungratefulness and an apathy. Whereas if there is an element of challenge, and not an unnecessary challenge, a necessary challenge that stretches us and brings the best of us out, so a necessary stress in a sense, it strengthens, it fortifies, and what then becomes fortified is stronger than what was there before.
That's the one where the fathers exchanged, where he gave a child to a different father.
Yes.
That
was really interesting, wasn't it?
That was really interesting to see the fear on the other father when somebody else took responsibility for his child.
Yes.
And the joy when it was completed.
Absolutely. Now, you may watch Ed Stafford Into the Jungle, the documentary series, and you may have a different opinion of it. You may have a different opinion on anything and everything we said this morning. And that's absolutely fine. We may not be absolutely right. We're just sharing how we think and feel this morning. And all of you, think for yourself, feel for yourself. It's an obvious thing to say. And we're hoping really to encourage conversation, reflection, and for people to think, to feel, and to engage with each other, and to engage with human story, to engage with humanity, and let's become human-centred in the best of who we can be. Well, that's gone very quickly this morning, Anne, hasn't it? It really has. Wow, that's flown by.
Yes, it has.
So I think we'll have to wrap it up there, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, I do love listening to your stories, to be honest. I do. I don't think we've got time this morning, but thank you, Anne, for sharing all of
Okay.
your wisdom. Honestly, I know I speak on behalf of so many, but thank you. And thank you to you all for tuning in. We hope that you've enjoyed listening, as always, and we look forward to speaking with you again next Sunday. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.